If you could clear all your resentments towards men or women, what life would be possible for you?
Men are not toxic. Men are the answer. Welcome to the Remasculation Podcast.
Masculinity is not toxic. Masculinity is medicine. Welcome to the Remasculation Podcast. This show is dedicated to healing the battle of the sexes through the exploration, celebration, and pursuit of healthy masculinity in the modern world. I'm your host, Michael Bates, and my mission is to accelerate and celebrate the evolution of men and masculinity across this planet in our lifetime. From emasculation to remasculation, this podcast stands in service to all of humanity by taking a stand for good men everywhere. I am so excited to have with us today here on the show a dear sister from New York, from back in the day. Her name is Veronica Kaulinis. She is a certified facilitator, community builder, intimacy coach, and the founder of Vulnerable AF, which is a framework and workshop series that encourages vulnerability, brave leadership, and living life by desire. She shows heart-centered leaders how to be more brave and to create freedom by using the power of vulnerability. Veronica went from being an ex-bartender, like myself, to now doing what she loves by leading over 100 in-person workshops and retreats around the world, from NYC to Puerto Rico to Europe to Bali. She's led workshops that encourage deep connection from employees at corporations like Meetup and helped multiple startup companies build their communities from scratch. She is a legend. She is exceptional. And her work is inspired by authentic relating practices, Tantra, parts work therapy, and somatic studies. Veronica, what a pleasure to have you on this podcast.
Oh, welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
I am too. I feel like we've had quite a few conversations in our day, going all the way back to the Lightning Lofts where we used to live in New York and Brooklyn together with our 15 other roommates, I think it was, at one point. Yep. 17 of us down on Barrett Street, Bushwick, what?
Shout outs to Lightning Society.
Yeah. It feels like another life. But here we are, and this podcast episode was born from a number of things. I just moved to Austin, Texas. What up, y'all? And you're someone that has been doing this work as we mentioned in the bio, this sort of beautiful in-person men's and women's work in a really amazing way. And we continue to have wonderful conversations about, as you put it so beautifully, waking up to the work of loving men, which is the title of this podcast, and something that I think you are really at the forefront of the conversation that I hear in our community around sort of pushing back against some of these ideas, as I like to say, some of the unintended consequences of feminism and the progressive movements that have left some damage in its wake. So I just want to start with what has it been like for you, and what brought you into the place that you're at now with this waking up to the work of loving men? How did you get here?
Yeah, I just have to say there was multiple times when you were talking and just even bringing up this topic around loving men, I just felt really moved and just so emotional around this topic, because there's so much around it. There's so much charge around it. Maybe you're a woman and you're listening to this and you're like, what the fuck? I don't want to do that. Why should I do that? Right? Yeah. And I just want to just validate that if you're listening to this and you have resistance to this conversation, I just want to really welcome that. And this, I also had a lot of resistance to this topic and this conversation, because I had a lot of, bad experiences in some way with men, right? I've been hurt by men. My heart has been broken. I have been ghosted. I've been rejected. I've been abandoned, and all the things have happened, right? And this journey to loving men has been one of the most transformational experiences of my life. And I can cry at the thought of thinking about the men that I have in my life now, because I choose to love them and see them as brilliant beautiful, creative geniuses in my life, I feel so just like full from that, because I feel so supported by men. And I know I'm supported by men because of my decision to surround myself with amazing men and to love them, right? And to allow them, not even just love them, but to allow them to show up for me, to allow them to do what they are, what they want, what they're here to do, what they want to do for women, right? What they're really brilliant at doing, which is like providing and their provision and their like leadership, right? And it's been so cool to see the men that show up in my life now, because I chose to do the inner work on myself and heal my wounding around men and my past, and to see them differently. Like Michael and I have done 2 vulnerable AF workshops together back in New York, back in Brooklyn, back at the Lightning Society lofts in Brooklyn. And we did a workshop called Battle of the Sexes, right? And
yes, we did.
And it was around the conversation of masculine and feminine dynamics, and the conversation around vulnerability. You know, does it change when you're with a man or a woman? Why does it change? And even at that time, I did not love men. I did not have like the relationship that I do with men now. I still had like judgments, and I felt entitled around men.
Entitled to what?
Entitled to, things should go my way. I know better. Just emasculating men. In my past relationships, I emasculated men all the time. Rolled my eyes, put them down, tried to be smarter than them, better than them, didn't allow them to help me. And my relationships kind of suffered. Like I dated really powerful men. Like I love powerful men. And I've had in my past relationships, I love dating leaders because I'm a leader. And in those relationships, I did not know how to let those men who loved me provide for me and take care of me, because I wanted to overpower them. I wanted to dominate. I wanted to be in control because I thought I was smarter. I thought I was better. I always tried to get them to do some kind of work. I thought they were like, oh, you should read this book. You should listen to this podcast. You should do this workshop. You should do this thing. You should do that. You should do what I do all the time. And I didn't know that I was repelling them. I was so repelling. Right? Like it was really hot and heavy and beautiful in the beginning. And then like when my fear around like letting someone lead or letting someone like provide and take care of me and love me, I couldn't handle it. I didn't know how to receive that kind of love from a man like that. So my relationship sucked for a long time until I decided to do this work.
How did you discover this work? Like, how did you make that transition? Like, how did you become aware of and maybe this is an additional question. Were you conscious or unconscious of the emasculation? How did you come to recognize that the things you were doing, rather than just, oh, it's all the men need to change, the men, and hey, men do need to change, right? We're not saying that by any means. We all need to do the work. We all need to change. But how did that narrative switch for you? Like, what was there an aha moment? Was it a gradual sort of awakening? Like, what happened for you, Veronica?
So I started working with mentors, with women who are doing this work, who are doing the work of loving men, working with, our friends, Amy and Ellie from the company Desire of Fire, reading books by Alison Armstrong, so we're learning from those women who are on the path to loving men. Working with my teacher Chantel Raven in Bali, I did a workshop with her, and she's on this path of loving men, and looking at them and seeing like, wow, their relationships with men look so different than mine. Why do they have, like, looking at them and I'm like, why, before I did this work, it's like, why do they have this kind of like easy, free flowing relationship with men? Or why does it seem so easy for them? Right. And then when I started doing, working with them and then looking at my shit and looking at all the ways I've been entitled, all the ways I've been emasculating men, all the ways I've been, keeping a sword up around them and not really letting them into my heart. So really, really working with teachers and letting myself be called out. Also, I remember I worked with a teacher. He said something to me that just hit me to my core. I cried for 3 hours after he said this to me. He was like, he looked at me and he called out all the ways I've been like polished. Like, he's like, yeah, vulnerable AF. Yeah, fucking right. When was the last time you really let somebody into every part of your heart? Or when was the last time you let anybody into your garden? Like, really into your garden?
Wow.
And I was like, ooh, nailed. This guy saw me and fucking hit that part that was so true. This was like, I think in 2021. And I just like let him in, like let him penetrate that part of me and like sobbed. And also like I didn't sob and run away. I like was just in it, and it was in front of a group of people, and which hit all the way all of my vulnerable parts around like being seen in my vulnerability, being seen in my tears, being seen in my imperfections. And then like he just also held me in that, like was like did his masculine leader, like penetrated me with like his provision, and then also held me, and I like just melted, and also like felt that sadness of the truth. Like, wow, yeah, I don't let anybody in, and that was like just like letting like those parts be seen and felt, and feeling the pain of that. Right. So I've been on that journey of softening and the path of softening and seeing men in their leadership, like beautiful men, and letting them be men in my life, like men, letting the men who I trust, or who I see are like-minded or in the same community as me. Like I let them be them. And my life is so much more like magical, and the men that I have in my life are amazing. I think I see them, they're everywhere, right? Because I choose to believe that there's beautiful men out there, and I let them be beautiful. And it's like, you'd be surprised, right? Or I could have also, like that guy, that teacher who said that to me, I could have been like, fuck you. I did actually say fuck you to him for a little bit. And then he he like got me, but it was like, I could have just like hid and been like, oh my God, that man, he just like being a man, and how men are, and they think they know better. And like, I could have, I like all of that stuff came up in that moment, but it was also like, wow, I decided to like let him penetrate me in that way. Right. So yeah, so much. So getting called out by teachers, like letting men in, softening my heart, taking off the armor that's around my heart, has been the path of awakening to loving men. Because I've been letting men just be men who are in their leadership, who want to provide, who want to show up, who want to support, who want to lead. Like, because I let those men be who they are and be them, my life is exponentially better. Like my relationships are so much more magical, so much more like easy, right? Like I'm not like, I mean, yes, of course I'm discerning, right? I think we all should be discerning
So you
around
shouldn't just
who.
let men do whatever they want, and like
No,
that's not what you're saying. You should just surrender to every man on the street and just give up all sovereignty. And
obviously, no. Um, yes, but be discerning around who you let penetrate your heart.
mm,
And like the invitation is to see what it's like to dissolve the armor and soften. The more I soften, the easier it is to receive the kind of man that I've always wanted, the depth that that is in men, right? Like a big complaint that I hear from women is like, he's not doing the inner work, or he's not deep enough, or he's not this. I'm vulnerable and he's not vulnerable enough. Well, guess what? Your vulnerability inspires his vulnerability.
say that again, please.
Your vulnerability inspires his vulnerability.
Please, God, I say it a third time.
Ladies, your vulnerability and your open heart inspires his leadership and his open heart.
And I want to say this too, ladies. I know it's hard when his leadership isn't there yet, or if his strength or the things that you can kind of see the edges of aren't quite there yet. I know it's hard. I know it's hard. One of my mentors, London Angel Winters, always used to say, you got to suffer his lead a little bit, ladies. You got to be willing to, you know, if it's a battle of the sexes and we're all fighting for every inch, no one's going to give an inch. No one's going to give anything. But it's like if we're actually on the same team and you want a man that is in his power, and you want a man who is strong and capable and all the things that you say that you want, what's so bad about being the first one to offer that? And I'm not saying that women necessarily should be, but in a lot of the esoteric traditions, that's the suffering his lead that London mentions. You know, it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, which came first, women or men? I don't know. We're all born out of a woman. So I don't know. Like we could go on that journey for a long time, but there is something about the light in tantric terminology, the love light of the feminine, waking up the unconscious aspect of masculine consciousness with your truth, with your invitation, with your wisdom or your beauty or your just essence that snaps us open into a greater emanation of who we are and who we could be. And we do follow you in a lot of ways, right? Men are the leaders, right? Men are leading, but in a more meta way, it's the women that lead by the way they empower men to show up in leadership.
Yeah. Like they follow your clarity. They follow your provision.
Clarity.
Yeah. You're like, if you're a no, like beautiful conscious man will follow your no.
Yeah.
If you're a yes, he will follow your yes.
And that's why in the men's work that I do as well, and the coaching work that I do with men, the first thing we get clear on is clarity itself. What do you want? What do you need? What are you clear on? How can you get clear? And from that clarity, what action do you want to take? What position you want to move from? You said so many remarkable things, Veronica. I don't want to gloss over them, but it's like you mentioned the journey of softening. I know, so many of our sisters out there in the world are in this bind of so much of who they are, who they've taught to be, or who their identity is, and is wrapped up in their strength. And there's something so beautiful about the strength of a woman. You mentioned the armor that so many women are carrying, and how can women be discerning? Because again, it's like, well, you mentioned allowing a man to penetrate you and then knowing how to tell which man to penetrate you. I want to acknowledge that I think all of our sisters out there have experienced either energetic or literal, and it pains me to say that, but have experienced some type of painful, harmful, or unwanted penetration.
Yeah.
And I mean, you walk down the street in Brooklyn, right? You get from your journey out the door in the morning to the subway, you get unwanted, unasked for penetrative energy from, let's say, less than skillful emanations of the masculine. And so how do we all do that? How does the feminine do that go through the journey of softening, of being discerning and knowing when to take the armor off, when to take the armor on, take the armor off, put the armor on, you know?
Yeah, totally. Such a good question. And I just want to start with saying that, yeah, your strength is gorgeous, right? Like it's so gorgeous to see a woman just clear in who she is, what she wants, and like going after what she wants. Like I so want that for women, and women to not forget that is a superpower, and it's also a superpower. It's another superpower to soften, right? To soften in front of a man that's worthy of your softening. And I have to say that like there are a lot of men who are worthy of your softening and of your heart, right? It's the clarity that you have, that you hold in your standards, in your boundaries, your desires, right? When you hold that with sacredness, without, not entitlement, not control, but when you hold that with like loving sacredness, a man can't help but follow that, right? The right man. And yeah, totally. Like, oh, I know sometimes when I was walking around in Brooklyn and like I would get catcalled and sometimes I'd be like, oh, and it would annoy me. And then sometimes when I started doing this work and like walking down this path of loving men, and I started to play with it a little bit. I was like, instead of being like, ugh, I'd be like, thank you. Yeah, I am beautiful. Wow, thank you. And like it was actually interesting to see, like when I respond that way, I'm not giving them anything. Yeah, I'm saying hello. I'm not opening. I'm like careful of like what the energy I'm opening, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, wow, thank you. Like you see the men that are like they're like, oh my God, like they're like kind. They're like I actually see them in like a man I would never go on a date with, right? But like, but I'm like, thank you. He's like, you're welcome, right? Because he's like, oh, I want to. Wow, she gave me attention, like, and it's just like I just choose to see them and like, yeah, it's true. I'm not victimized by it, like by like my beauty or what they see in me, right? And yeah, yeah, that's true. Like, I'm sure men I've walked down the street and they're like, they want to eat, right? That is also there. But it's like, I am holding my energy, my boundaries, my standards. So when I hold my standards, I'm like, oh no, this isn't a match for me, but I'll be kind. I'm kind, right? Even like a man in New York. I remember I was having this conversation with a friend, or I was with a friend in New York this summer. And yeah, like a lot of men were just like, because we're two feminine beings who are like, enjoying ourselves, because our feminine is so attractive. Like it is, they're like,
yes, it is.
Into it.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Newsflash.
Up to us. Of course they did. Right. And like, I choose to like be kind, right? Unless you're like annoying me and you're like not being attuned and you're like you're not like listening, like then of course I have to take it to another level, right? But I don't normally do that. I notice that I don't have to do that when I'm just like, I just say thank you. I'm not like keeping it going or giving you my number or like, being like, yeah, I'll talk to you. I'll just like, no, thank you. Yes, no, thank you. Like, just my clarity in myself. It's not, I don't worry about it so much like I used to, right? Yeah. I'm not worried about, oh my God, if they go up to me, do I feel bad or do I have to give them my number? Do I have to talk to them? Like, no, I'm just aware and attuned, but also like kind.
What an amazing practice, Veronica. I just want to acknowledge you in that. What an I mean, workshop idea, right? It's like, wow, like empowering women to, and again, not that women should just take it, not that we're sitting here and saying, oh, catcalling is fine, you should just get
No.
over it. No, abso-fucking-lutely not. But I will say this, catcalling from men is a low level emanation of an attempt to penetrate the I hate this term, but I'm going to use it because I think it applies, the toxic masculine ethos that exists to protect men from their fear of women and their fear of rejection. And
Yeah.
so the catcalling is a low level emanation of appreciation. They do appreciate you. They're seeing you as, I love the way you said that, like as food, maybe like as a morsel that they want to devour. But
Yeah.
again, think about that energy from like a conscious lover. Like think
Yeah.
if you were experiencing by choice and with consent, the desire of a delicious, strong man wanting to eat you, wanting to devour you and to take you whole into himself and just be with you and take from you in a good, healthy way. There's a quintessential male fear, a male sexual fear and a sexual wound around performance.
Yeah.
Performance, like, because these guys call out to you, and it's usually only with their boys, right? It's rarely a man by himself who's going to
Yeah.
go out on a limb and be like, that sort of negative, super low level consciousness catcall.
Right.
It's
Like
usually guys by
they
themselves trying to make themselves feel better because they're actually terrified of you and you're that beautiful, and they want to appreciate you, but they're also afraid of being a sissy or a fag, right, to their boys, called all the different negative insults that us men throw to each other because we're afraid of being perceived as weak in the company of other men. And so it's like there's a whole thing wrapped up in the catcalling piece. And what a gift to be able to, in a way, almost like, it's not like you're condoning the action. It's not like you're condoning the catcalling by responding to it and alchemizing it in the way that you said. But there's something that you're doing, right? By repurposing it for yourself, taking it in, and maybe there is an opportunity for, you'd get more play, bro, if you took it up a notch or something. Like there's an opportunity to play and dig in that and not be affected to where it affects your day as a woman and just contributes to the aggregate mountain of resentments that you're dragging behind you, like Jacob Marley's ghost, from what is it, from Dickens, A Christmas Carol. So yeah, I've said a lot. Let me pitch this back to you here. What's the teaching? How do you do that? Like, how do you do that, Veronica? What's your superpower around this?
It's definitely like just going back to the question of like, how do you, like, for a woman who has felt hurt, and like, how does she be discerning with a man, right? Even when she has experienced pain and unwanted pain, right? Or like how do you go about that? It's like, yeah, it's like, can we take our power back and actually like appreciate ourselves, right? And like going back to our heart and embracing the power of sisterhood has been really big for me, right? Making sure that I am surrounding myself with women that also, practice this work, right? And going back to catcalling, like, if I'm walking down the street and I hear someone say like, damn, ma, or like, oh, damn, you have a fat ass. Like, and I'm like, yeah, I do. And it's like, I've said that, like, yeah, I know.
What do they do in that moment?
Like, they don't say anything. Like, or I look back at them when they see that I know they're about to break their neck. And I like just break my neck right back, and then you see them like, oh, like they're just, and it's true. It's like going back to like that little boy who like doesn't know what to do, and he's like a hot woman, and he's like, oh my god, let me touch her, or like let me do something, and it's like, it is advanced. Like this is advanced work to be approving of it. Like, oh my god, yeah, I know you want that, and no, you can't have that right now. And, I want your hand here instead, or I like, it's like, and it's the same in partnership. How do you make adjustments? Right. And you can do that like energetically, like, nope, you can't have it. but I'm not shaming you, because I know, yeah, I get it. Like kind of taking your power back in that way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like interesting when I'm, even like, a man, walking around in Brooklyn, and like a kind of like a man that I would never go give a moment of time to, when I'm like kind, like I've been like, someone has helped me like bring my bags up. Like, can I bring your bags? Or like, can I do this for you? Like that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, thank you.
We just want to
Instead of like, no,
serve
I
you.
got it. Like,
Yeah.
no, ugh. Like, I don't want him to help me. He wants something from me. It's like, I'm like, yeah, thank you. And then that's it. They're like, wow, this woman gave me attention for a moment. Like that probably made his day.
Yeah.
Right. And not
Yeah.
that I'm here to like make his day. Right. But it's like, oh yeah, like, just
This,
practicing that way.
yeah. And this
And it's
brings
a
it back
man.
to the battle of the sexes, right? Versus the ballad of the sexes. Like if it's a war, then it is give and take. It's like, no, I'm not going to give you anything. No, you hurt me. No, you hurt
Yeah.
me. No, 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 no. And it's like, yeah, I get it. I get it. Like men have perpetrated, right? So have
Mm-hmm.
women, physical violence is the masculine shadow. Emotional violence is the feminine shadow. Like at what point are we done? Like at what point does the tally board come down and we decide that, okay, like how do we move past this? And I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think it has to happen from individuals. It has to happen from individuals that become sort of nodes in their own community, like lighthouses in their own community for how to alchemize this energy and how to transcend the battle. And I think talking to you the other day, again, it's so remarkable because we've known each other for so long. And I remember Veronica, where I was sitting in a cemetery. So it's
As one
just
does.
me. As I do. It's it's what better place to think, right? And have peace. Like in New York, I knew where all the cemeteries were because it's where I could always go. It would be quietish. New York is never quiet, but quieter. And I could just be at peace. And I remember I was in the one downtown, right by the Twin Towers, and sitting in there. And you called me up, and you're like, "I'm doing this. I want to do this thing, vulnerable AF." And how should I do this? And you were so cute. You were so like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, she totally knows what to do. And then you did, and then it's done its thing. But like, I really see that. Just to shout you out, like you've hockey sticked in so many ways over time. It's been incredible to watch you and your journey, and to the point now where, as we talked about the other day, women tend to come up to you and ask you, how did you do this? Like, how did you go from point A to point Z? How did you turn the battle into a ballad in your own system?
Yeah.
And I think to the degree that you do that and you be this teaching, which I've watched you be, rather than just talking about it, like you are this thing, like that's the magic. And being willing to not tolerate shadow male bullshit or shadow masculine
Yeah.
bullshit, but then how to play with it and how to
My
remember
approval
that
is
you're a radiant being that's made for a different type of combat. If you're trying to match masculine with your own masculine, like it is exhausting. In the same way, it can be exhausting for a male body to be in feminine energy consistently, if that makes sense. I know we're getting a bit esoteric here, but yeah, I'll pitch it back to you on your journey.
Yeah. I love that you said, I also interrupted you for a moment. I said, yeah, my approval is not tolerant.
Yeah.
All right. My permission for men being men, and my permission for myself, like, is not, doesn't mean I just tolerate anything. Right. In fact, it's so opposite. I have a standard. Right. And I'm just very
That's
clear
such a
on.
critical thing, right? Like you've said this a few times. I want to pinpoint it. Like you have a standard. You've developed a standard, a way of what you will tolerate and what you will not tolerate.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a critical piece, especially for the feminine, so that we can it's almost like you're masculine letting us know where we can penetrate, where we can't. Like, can I push? Can I push? I think women today have been taught in a way, incidentally, to, I don't know, like if they don't let men in, or if they don't let in, let's say, some of those more unconscious vibrations of the masculine, then there's nothing but low grade emanations of masculine energy coming their way. And if they turn that away, then they get nothing.
Right.
They get nothing.
Yeah. So, I mean, for a woman who's watching this, it's, I think the first step for you is to just get clear. Like, what is my standard? Like one of my standards is depth and communication and vulnerability. And when I feel a man doesn't have that, isn't reflecting that to me, because that's my world. Like, I don't attract emotionally unavailable men anymore. Like, I started Vulnerable AF because I kept attracting emotionally unavailable men. Like, the truth behind Vulnerable AF, like, I know I said it's because I wanted to create a space for deep and meaningful conversations, or for people to have real.
Yeah, but you could have called it anything. You called it that.
Yeah. But what it came from, oh my God, I am so hurt because I have never, I keep attracting, or I keep being in these relationships with men that don't want a relationship with me, that don't want commitment.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it. And I'm like sad about it. And I don't know what to do. And why do I keep finding myself in these relationships? And it was also a reflection of my friends too. Like, why didn't I have this depth that I saw that other people had? And it's because I wasn't vulnerable. My heart was so closed. And that is why I started this. And let me tell you, I don't have that anymore. This path of vulnerability, of opening my heart, of loving men, like, it's so opposite now. Like, men who are emotionally unavailable, like, they don't even go in, they're not even in my field anymore. It's so opposite. Like, it's like men who want a relationship with me right away. Right. Or like who want commitment. It's like, that's not the issue anymore. It's like deciding, like, is this the right man for me?
Like, yeah. That's it. I mean, one of my mentors, David Data, talks extensively about the idea of the reciprocal, like the mathematic reciprocal. Like you always, it's sort of a derivation of this idea from NLP that you cannot not communicate. A human being cannot not communicate. You are always communicating and putting out of an energetic field. And I teach my men this. I call it broadcast responsibility for my men, of taking full responsibility of what you are putting out 24/7. Actions, that's the easiest thing to control. Then your words, and then your thoughts. That's fucking Jedi level shit. But to be able to understand that you do and always are attracting your reciprocal, and you are the summation of the people you surround yourself with. So if you're not finding what you want to be around, you've got to change your environment. You've got to change your circumstance. You've got to start to take responsibility for your half of the equation of the energy you are putting out. And the evidence is what you're attracting. But I'm a queen, but I'm a king. Well, and I get that there's a lag time sometimes, right? When you start to do the work, again, there's this thing called the echo test where I want to raise my vibration and start to attract different people, and the universe is like, great, cool. Let's see if they really mean it. Here's some of the same thing. Are you going to tolerate it, or are you going to meet the universe halfway, meet God halfway, whatever you want to call it? Do the work on your side of the equation, and then be patient enough for the energy, the new energy that you're putting forward, to impact the matter, the material of the way you've been, because matter takes longer to be affected than energy does, which is why you go to a high vibe workshop and, wow, I'm going to change my life. And then you run into the matter of your life on Monday morning and your old habits and your old patterns. But yeah, your reciprocal, there's so many ways to work with this. I love that you mentioned Alison Armstrong, who's, like, to me, the female David Data equivalent. Like, Data, DEIDA, for you guys listening who aren't familiar with his work, read his work for the masculine frame. Read Alison Armstrong for the feminine frame. These are the two strongest frames that I know of in that essence. But what do you got to say about all that, V?
So good. Yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful. It's like, it's so true. It's like you are always a choice, right? You are a reflection of who you attract. Right? And back in the day, I was attracting emotionally unavailable men who didn't want commitment and could
Why were you doing that? Why
and
were you attracting those types of men?
because I was emotionally unavailable.
Hmm.
I was so emotionally unavailable, and I was tolerating that because I
Yeah.
was so scared to let someone fully into my heart. And even though I wanted it, I did, and I thought I did, but I kept tolerating
Yeah.
exactly that. And I was scared of losing love, and I was
Yeah.
scared of being alone. So I would
Mm.
tolerate.
Yeah.
And then he didn't want that. And then I was, I went through this whole like poly path where I was poly for 5 years and like in open relationships. And there's nothing wrong with open relating if that's what you
Yeah.
choose to do. But
I
that
was on that path too for a minute. Yeah.
totally. And oh my God, I'm so grateful I had that experience because it taught me so much.
Yeah.
And there was also another barrier to intimacy to me.
Mm.
For me, it was another barrier, and it was another way to not have to let one person fully see me in my shit, and then not. It was annihilating, right?
Yeah.
I had to on this
Oof.
path. I'm like, listen, ladies, men, this path is annihilating. It is
Yeah.
not cute. It's not
No.
pretty. It's not easy. You have to like really like look at yourself, and sometimes it's fucking ugly. Actually, most of the time it is. And like I think I think a woman's rite of passage is is opening her heart.
Mm.
Like one of her biggest journeys in life is opening her heart.
Yeah.
Men have to go off in the wilderness and become a man, and a woman becoming a woman is opening her heart.
Mm.
And it's annihilating, right? And um yeah, it's like, and especially when I started this path of loving men, the men that are in my life are like, oh my God, so gorgeous. Like they are so in their heart. Like even the
Yeah.
man yesterday I met over the weekend. I led like the opening ceremony with my friend at this like really amazing party that my friends put together. It was like co-created mini one day Burning Man, an exercise where everybody like got into a circle and you could see who's here, who's in the circle. And I asked the question, step into the circle if you're single and you're open to a romantic connection this weekend. And this guy stepped in and he messaged me the next day. I mean, we didn't really get to connect that day. But he messaged me. He was like, hey, I looked in the circle when you said that and I didn't see you, so I don't know if are you single. And I was like, oh, I did step into the circle. And it was just like a funny moment. And he said to me, hey, I'm traveling, I'm nomadic, and I'm going to be in Austin until the 22nd. Would you want to get together? I found you like really like I was like really into you, but we didn't talk, and it was just like a really sweet message. But I
Mm-hmm.
said, hey, if just to be honest with you, thank you, thank you for messaging me, and I want to be clear with you. I'm looking for a partnership.
Mm.
So you not being here in Austin, it changes things for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm open to, meeting up if we have time and spending time together as friends, right? Because I thought he was cool and interesting and like we have the same circle. But
And I'm not
yeah,
willing to be your 2 week fuck buddy
no.
because this is the standard that I'm holding, and I'm not willing to tolerate that kind of energy. And thank you. I love you.
Yeah.
Blessings.
And being
Do you know what a gift that
intentional.
gives to men? Because then it
Mhm.
checks us. Then we're like, oh fuck. This V chick is pretty dope. Maybe I want to stay in Austin. Maybe there's more here. Maybe there's not, and it's cool. And I'm going to go to Bali. And
Totally.
wow, like maybe I want real. Like you never know how the truth of the feminine authenticity is going to affect the field. And again, my God or my goddess, I should say, if there's anything that I want women to start to realize, it's that the truth of how you feel in real time expressed through the open vessel of your heart. There is no greater gift that the
Mhm.
masculine can receive than that. There's
Yes.
no greater gift. And it's so important. You said so many beautiful things. It's so important to remember that energetically, the masculine penetrates the feminine through the sex, right? We can do the math of that. But the feminine penetrates the masculine through the heart. And there's such an opportunity there, as you mentioned. The I don't even remember how you said it, but the ability for a woman to open her heart. And there's a very old tantric idea of the 3 gateways for the feminine body, of relaxing the front side of your body, opening the throat, opening in the energetic, your voice and how you're setting your boundary and tolerating and speaking. And then also just the singing, the mellifluousness of the feminine's expression and invitation and all these things that are so intoxicating to us. And then the opening of the heart space and your ability to penetrate us through there, and us to be sort of magnetized to the flower of the petals of your heart opening. And then the ability to open the cervix, to open the deeper part of the feminine body. And obviously there's sexual translations of those 3 pieces, but there's also the energy of that and your ability to open and close these things. Like this work is so dope. There's so many layers to this. It's just so magical. It's like, holy smokes.
Yeah. And it's like saying no with like love and approval.
Yeah.
Like saying no with love and approval, and like, and not making him wrong for being nomadic. I could have been so victimized by that. Like, again, like, he's another man, not available. Right. Yeah. He's traveling. He's doing this. Like, like this always happens to me. Of course he's not available. Or he's here for a couple of weeks. Let me accept some breadcrumbs. Let me see what it's like. Right. Versus like, hey, this is my standard. Thank you. No, thank you. And that was just my truth. And his response was like, and exactly what you said. Wow. Thank you for saying that. I'm actually calling in the same thing. And I love how clear you are about that. That actually inspired me. Like, and I didn't get hooked by it or anything. I was like, oh, great. Like, and that is like letting him make his own choices and decisions. And if like we're meant to connect further one day, great. My standard is yes, be here.
And I think that's tough for women sometimes, because there is this archetypal preference where the feminine prefers something over nothing. And so it can be hard not to take the breadcrumbs, especially if you're starving. Right. If your body mind is starving, or you're in a place of real need for the masculine, it's more likely that you'll accept the smaller things, which again, just reiterate the old pattern.
Yeah.
So that echo test of you, okay, I Veronica wants partnership, committed partnership. The universe is like, hey, but how about this sounds like worked in a good way, like dancing Shiva masculine breadcrumb. Hi, I'm delicious. I can communicate. I thank you for not, accepting my invitation. That is an attractive invitation in and of itself, right? So, but you being able to hold the line and hold the line in that energy, and be able to wait and be patient.
Totally.
And trust that gift is gonna draw what you're actually waiting for even closer to you, even closer to you, even closer to you.
Totally. And just going back to the topic of like loving men, like it's like, look at all the ways that you emasculate men, control men, are criticizing of men.
Yeah.
Right. Like I used to do this all the time. And like the one thing and when we were exchanging voice notes, and we didn't exchange many voice notes, but he's like, wow, he's like, if we don't meet, or if we just meet as friends for dinner or something, like I just want to be in your world, because I liked your like your light playfulness, like your energy. I was attracted. We didn't even talk at the party. He just felt my energy. Right. And like that your energy and my energy at that party was like showing up for my friends, you know, and the two men that were leading the event were men, and I was like
Yeah.
serving them, like
Yeah.
with excitement.
That's, yeah. That's huge, Veronica. That's huge because, again, like women, if you're listening, like, again, there's a very old idea. The way you do one thing is how you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can remember that you're the flower that we're being drawn to, and if you can radiate the energy that you want to receive, you're reciprocal, you're equivalent of the energy you want to receive. And you do that with your guy friends, you do that with your brother, you do that with your dad,
Yeah.
in the ways that are, natural to those relationships. But you start to let yourself be seen, in the energy that you want. And it's really hard if you've been hurt in that energy before.
Totally.
And that's the work, right? The willingness to step in, to reclaim the parts of yourself that were harmed, and that we all have, and that men carry, and that women carry, and then we weaponize against the other.
Totally.
And then, patriarchy theory emerges from that. Well, men as a class oppress and harm women as a class. It's like, do they? I don't think. Some do. Some have. This one did to me, so fuck all of you. It's like, I get where that comes from. I've been that person that's been so harmed that I then weaponize what was done to me against the entirety of the feminine race. Because you broke my heart, and fuck you, you unfeeling monster. It's like, yeah, I'm not discounting the authenticity of the felt experience that you had, but and you may need to stay in that. You may need to stay in that resentment and pain for a little bit longer until you're ready to come out. But if and when you're ready to come out, there are tools, there are ways, there are books and people like Veronica that are doing this kind of work, that are teaching and leading this kind of work, where you can start to see what we're talking about. Like, don't just trust our words here. Like, get your eyes on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Get some of these books in your hands. It's out there. It's out there. And again, like you were sharing with me a conversation that a woman had with you the other day, which is like, oh, you know how men are. This is, men are like this and men are like that. And then you said, well, actually, the men that I experience aren't like that. They're like this. And she was like, well, I don't understand. I don't know any of those men. Where do you find men like that? And you said, they're all around me. They're everywhere. You're just not seeing them, and they're not seeing you because of the energy that you've chosen to emanate and be impacted by. And so again, this is not to blame anyone, or not to say I'm better than you because I'm at this level, or you're not. The evidence that you are not as advanced as a woman as I am is because you're not It's like, fuck that bullshit.
You haven't done this workshop. I did this workshop.
Oh man,
do it.
God,
Like,
and we do that in the conscious community, don't we? It's just so like,
how do you start with this medicine?
I'm more conscious than you, and
I'm more conscious than you. Oh my God. Like I did that.
I'm mixing tantra with ayahuasca and combo and ketamine and all these things at the same. You didn't do that. You're not. That's a whole other tangent. We can't go down that road. V. We'll be here all day.
And then that's when they're like, you have to earn. You have to. That's like one of my teachers calls this the golden pussy, which isn't a great thing to be. It's this like, oh, you better like earn it. You have to earn it, and then like you never let anybody in. Right, yeah. Because they constantly, no one's good enough.
The bar is so high, yeah,
so high, and no one can ever meet it. And then you're always disappointed.
I hear that a lot from
and
women.
It's like, oh yeah, that was me so much. Like, or I would either accept anything, or like I was like, oh no, he hasn't done this workshop or that thing or blah 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 blah. And it's like, now it's interesting. Like the guys I meet. Like, no, they haven't done, like, yes, there's a standard of like, it's important to me that whoever I'm dating and who's around me, that they're in the conversation of transformation, they're evolving themselves in some way. But like, yeah, so what? They haven't done these things, right? But my commitment to doing my own work inspires and creates the energy that I want to be around.
That's right.
And
That's right. Because again, I want to say this, and this might be a little challenging for some people, but you and I have both spent extensive time in the poly space and also in monogamous space. And I'll say this, kings and queens are not made in a vacuum. They are made in relationship. And this idea that I need to wait for my perfect king to show up on my doorstep with flowers, knowing exactly what to say, is ludicrous. And like, well, I just need for my perfect woman is just going to saunter into my life and know exactly what to do to, turn me on and
serve me, and she's going to do all the things.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's not the way it works. And that's not what any of the archetypal stories teach us. Like, show me an ancient story, like that's older than like the last 50 years that educates in that way. Because, one of the stories, it's a really old story. It's been modernized, but the Beauty and the Beast story is so remarkable in the brilliance of the understanding of that specific archetypal relationship between the masculine and the feminine. And again, circling back to what London taught me and the necessity to suffer his lead sometimes, but that sort of Belle's ability to see the prince or the king energy inside of the beast and be willing to be in a bit of the beastliness and have a boundary and give him the boundary. This is not okay. You behaving this way and screaming at me and locking me in a room like a tyrant. What are you thinking? It's her ability to have set her boundaries beforehand that allows him to begin the process of awakening.
Right.
And then his king energy starts to emerge, which starts to tease out her queen energy, which starts to tease out his king energy, which starts to tease out his queen energy. And all these pieces that they talk about in High Tantra, in Vajrayana Buddhism, of the diamond vehicle, Vajrayana, the way that the masculine and feminine can raise each other. And you and I see this in the workshops that we do when it happens in the field. And suddenly there's just this ooey gooey transformation and people don't want to leave. They just want to stay in that field because we're all so starved for it. Mm-hmm. And so it's not to say that you can't do that in a poly or a open relating space. But my experience is that space is filled with a lot of princes and princesses. And again, I have been in plenty of horrible monogamous relationships, and I've seen plenty of horrible marriages, right? So I'm not saying in any way that it is better necessarily. But in my own experience, the crucible of committing to one person and not being able to just bounce when shit gets hard is what has brought the king energy out in me more than anything else and allowed me to change in that crucible. And I mean that technically, in that fiery force field of pressure that comes from a deep connection. You mentioned that earlier, right? The depth that's necessary.
Yeah. And it's like, and it requires like you women to show him your heart, like show him your pain, show him your no. Like, fuck, I'm fucking pissed that you said this.
Yeah. And then let us be with you in that.
That you disconnected from me and that I lost you and that you didn't show up for me. I feel fucking sad. Like that. And that, like, then he can like, oh, wow, I didn't know. Like, you show him your impact. Then he can show up for you, because men do want to serve you. Like, the masculine wants to serve the feminine. Deeply.
Joseph Campbell said it best. He said, women are the vehicles and vessels of life itself, and men are the servants of life itself. And what a beautiful relationship, right? And instead of punishing us for our indiscretions or our mistakes, show us the way back.
Right.
Help us find the way back. Again, if it's not about tit for tat in a battle and keeping score, like, to the degree you can hold the intensity of, I was hurt, this is why, this was the impact, ow. And you can show us through your emotional vessel, your vehicle of how it felt to you, rather than through the logical brain space of the masculine. It helps us be in our masculine and find you in that. And then we can find the way back together. And I've never seen that path not result in opening, in deepening, in expansion. And oftentimes the best sex you've ever had, that you didn't know was available because a depth was touched together and you came back with something from those depths. You went down there and found something in the dark.
Right.
In stir qualinus invenitur, in filth it will be found. This idea that the thing you want most is in the place you least need to look. It's an old alchemical phrase that Carl Jung resurrected and then Jordan Peterson sort of made famous recently. But like that's the essence of it, right?
And a lot of women, including myself, who've done this, it's like we think that withholding love and shutting down and not saying anything is the stronger thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that. I did that with my dad. One time I didn't talk to my dad for 6 months living in the house.
Oh, what a brutal punishment.
And that was my way of punishing him.
Yeah, what a brutal punishment.
I did that for a long time with all of the men in my relationships, punishing him. Yeah. Withholding sex is a form of punishment.
Oof.
Right? It's like, oh, I'm gonna withhold from you. You can't get it.
Right? That's one of the most brutal punishments that the feminine can inflict on the masculine. But who loses in that ultimately?
The women.
Yeah.
And it is like, and what is the cost of that? Like I did that with my ex that I dated for that I was with for 2 years, or my ex, who me and him have a great relationship now. We love each other so much, but we had gone through the depths of the challenges. We've gone through some challenging things, and that was a big relationship in my life, and I punished him a lot. Because I felt really hurt by him. He did some things that hurt me, and I hurt him too, right? But I in the relationship, I withheld, I punished, I left, and I did all of that. And guess what? It cost me. It impacted me the most. Like then we broke up, and it sucked, and like it was just like, and it was like months of just hell, right? It didn't like. Yeah, he was hurt in his own way, right? But it cost me months of pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And then looking back at that relationship, I called him up and apologized to him when I started doing this work. I said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for not letting you love me. And I know the moments when I withheld love and was nasty to him because I was angry and resentful about something that happened months ago. And I hurt him deeply. It is disrespectful to men to withhold love. I disrespected him deeply. And I apologized for how I showed up and how I didn't let him love me, because at the end of the day, that man just wanted to love me. He did, even though he hurt me, and we did stupid shit to each other. Like, I mean, if I tell you the stories about that, me and him did a podcast episode once.
Did you afterwards?
We did. We did a podcast episode together. But it was because we talk about like the crazy shit we did in our relationship. But guess what? That man, like, he loved me, and I couldn't let him love me. And I apologized to him for that. And actually, like, I love him more deeply now, because I'm like, oh my God, I don't see what he did in the past anymore. I'm like, oh my God, Joe, when I see him, I'm like, oh, I love him so much, because he like, I see his love. I can see his love now, but that I couldn't receive. I just couldn't receive him back then. And that was like, ooh. I had to go down the excruciating part. Like, ooh, damn. That time when we broke up, I did that.
Yeah. Wow. What a gift to you both to be able to take ownership. Right. And then I'm sure that empowered him to take ownership of things, even in the moment, in like the real time revelation of you opening up and being vulnerable AF, as you trained to do. And you're, again, what a joy. And to speak about this. And Joe, love you, brother. Good to shout you out on this too. You said his name, so I figured I could say it too. We'll keep the last name anonymous. Just to keep. What do men need to hear from women? What's your, in this moment, what's the download from the annihilation that you have intentionally gone through with your open heart, V, from your open heart to the men out there who are listening right now? What do they need to hear from women, from you, from the feminine?
Don't be afraid to step into your leadership. And that your heart is wanted. Your heart is felt. And she wants your depth. She wants your heart.
How does he give that to her? How does he do that, V?
He gives it to her by being present. Being present. Being her, feeling her, not being afraid of her. Don't be afraid of her emotions, of her bigness. Like the one thing I hear from women is like they're afraid of being too much.
Or not enough,
Or
right?
not enough.
On either side of that equation. Yeah.
Too much,
yeah.
right? And it's like, don't be afraid of her bigness. Don't be afraid of her emotions, her anger, her sadness. Welcome it. See it as medicine. Receive it. Receive it, and also don't tolerate anything that's not love.
Beautifully said. And that's a whole teaching and training in and of itself, how to be with the feminine bigness and the intensity of what her storm can look like, and not make it about you. Even when it's about you, how do you make it not about you? How do you realize it's about a frame she got way before you showed up on the block, bruh? And you probably did some dumb shit, right? So it's like, how do you hold that and be able to step into the healing again? If one of you can step beyond the battle, if one of you can bring it. So on that same thread, what do women need to hear from you? What do women need to hear from you, from your own experience? And I know you've been riffing on it for the whole show, but about men, like, what do women need to hear from you about men?
Men crave your heart. Men crave your truth. They crave your vulnerability.
Desperately.
And they want you to call them out in a loving way, right? Like, don't be afraid to call them out, because that might be in service to them. I had this experience recently where I was like, I think I shared with you, I'm like, do I keep this in or do I hold it? Is my no, should I accept this? Should I let it go? Right? Or actually is this no in service to us, to them, to this evolution of what we're wanting in partnership? Right? So it's like, your heart is your superpower, women. And control, criticism, and being closed is an intimacy killer.
Say that last piece again.
Control, criticism, and a closed heart are intimacy killers.
Yeah. I love the part you said about not being afraid to call them out, but then it's how you go about doing that, right? Because it's very easy to, the line between emasculation and empowerment is very thin, at least at the beginning. How do you inspire a man into his greatness versus call him out? Because if you call him out in a masculine way, it's very natural for him to reject that, because it's a form of criticism that is not in alignment with him being congruent with your sweetness and your the way that bring it about. It's like, and this is like the art of the feminine no should be like the art of the feminine call out, the art of the feminine boundary to the masculine. I mean, shit, that's some advanced shit you should teach me, of like how to train at that high level.
And also like, it's like, the difference of like expressing your heart and owning your no, and like calling someone out which could be emasculating, right? And I would highly recommend reading the book The Queen's Code, or the Keys to the Kingdom by
Alison Armstrong,
to learn about all the ways women emasculate men. That these subtle ways that you didn't know was emasculating.
Often unintentionally, yeah.
Often unintentional. It's like, oh, a subtle way of emasculating a man is like taking out the garbage. Like a man takes out the garbage, and like he does something. He's taking out the garbage, and you're like, ugh, you didn't do enough, or like, you never clean. Just like things it's like that, like, oh.
Because the first thing he'll do is remember that time that he did clean.
Yeah.
That negates the argument in a way, but doesn't allow him to realize that there's an ask. You're making an ask. There's a request, Right. And the ability to share it through what I call EFN, experience, feelings, needs. This was my experience. It made me feel this way. In the future, I would need more of this, like, versus even that's a masculine frame. But even like you said, right, the ability to show how it made you feel through your feminine vessel in a way that inspires the hero in him to come and take action. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember where, but well, there's this idea that I love, that the queen inspires those around her to give her what she wants.
Yeah.
And that's the art of the queen. To be able to inspire those around you to give you what you want. That doesn't mean you can't take action. That doesn't mean you can't have agency. That doesn't mean you can't step into king energy, which I would say the king commands and or inspires those around him to take action into their greatest self for the benefit of the realm, which is the benefit of themselves as well, and all who live within that realm. But yeah, that's the stuff, isn't it?
Something that I just thought about with men, like something that I want men to know too, is like, I do hear men feel afraid to approach women, or feel afraid to.
Yeah, you guys are terrifying.
Be that dark masculine who is,
Yeah, but what if I say the wrong thing and then I get canceled? What if I kind of hit on you and then you're like, how dare you? Who think you are? And then I'm like, oh fuck, and then kind of.
And it's over. Then it's like they feel like they feel like they just got their balls cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, like it pains me when I hear men not be men, right? Or like feel afraid to lead or to share and to speak. Like, I love a man's provision and their clarity, their sword. It's so attractive and beautiful. And I want more men to have more permission to have that. And women, we need, when you learn this work, like learning how to let men like lead, it doesn't mean like take advantage of you. It doesn't mean, control you.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you can't lead also whenever you want, or in a different context, or even then see if that feels good. Like there are some women out there that have natural masculine essences that
with me.
Yeah.
I was very strong masculine, right? But I also like it's practice for me to soften my feminine and like if I'm talking to a man and we're talking about personal development work and and I might know something more than he does, and then he's like, but I know this, or it's this, and I might be like, oh cool, thank you, like, oh wow, that's like letting it's like, you know what,
suffering his lead.
I'm not gonna I'm like, oh cool, like thank you for sharing that, I didn't know that, or I saw it as this way, okay. Like not fighting, like, I need to be right.
And that's where it becomes an art, right? That's where it becomes the art of, when is it worth the fight? Is this the hill I want to die on, and why? And if not, how can I use my skill set, which is ultimately for every human being, regardless of what body you're in, the integration and balancing of the masculine and feminine energies that flow within you in all different permutations upon a spectrum of ultimate masculine and ultimate feminine. Like, where do you reside on that? Where's your natural home? Where have you been conditioned to be? And through this work, where do you actually feel that resonance, and that can change. It gets to change. We get to play in this space. And to the degree you learn the deeper game, the deeper rules, the game just gets so much juicier and so much more fun and so much just like, like you said, right? Veronica has created a life where she is surrounded by the men that so many women come up to me and ask me where they are. Where are all the good men? Where are all the men doing their work? I don't know, ladies, text Veronica.
They're here. They're everywhere.
They're here.
Like, oh my
They're
God.
here. They're definitely here in Austin,
They're
but I mean, I work with these men every day.
Yeah,
these men are my clients, my friends, my brothers.
Mm-hmm.
We're here.
We're here. Yeah. And it's like a man like that can't see you if you're like in your life, no, fuck men, I'm right, and men suck, men don't listen,
men are toxic,
know everything, that they're toxic. Guess what? A man who is like beautiful and conscious and in their heart will not tolerate that.
Is your need to be right more important than your need to be met?
Mm-hmm.
Is your need to be right more important than your need to be met? You choose. You choose. This path is all personal development is ultimately a path of self-responsibility and realizing how much you've played, like you said so beautifully with Joe, waking up to how much of a part you played in that relationship. And you weren't the only one fucking up and making mistakes. My London Angel Winters, her partner, my mentor, Justin Patrick Pierce, always, says it. It's like, you've got to, it was there and I just lost it. So sorry, Justin. But the ability to be in the dance of it and not just, again, be trying to fight and trying to win and trying to get one over on them. And it's such a different game when you show up with that and are able to create a ballad versus a battle and start to, as we called that workshop back in New York back in the day. So, yeah.
I'm curious to hear from you. What do you want women to know?
What do I want
women to know from a man's perspective?
I mean, you've already said it, but there's an oracle that lives in you. There's an oracle that lives in you, and she emerges through the authentic, felt, and expressed sense of your truth in the moment. Expressed not through words necessarily, through a masculine, literal, rational frame, but through what often is construed as an irrational frame, through a nonsensical, through a nonlinear, through the, this is what I'm feeling, this is my storm, this is my, like the truth of that. And to the degree that you learn to be in that and know when it's appropriate or when it's not, or how to, know your audience, right? But start to stretch your capacity to shields up, shields down, shields up, shields down. No, I'm not okay to a cat call today. I'm going to alchemize this cat call and send these boys on their head with, wow, does your mother know that you're speaking that way to me? Because, I mean, I know you want it, because check it out. But, whatever way you want to play, man, I'll say this. To the degree that you are holding resentments towards the masculine, to the degree you believe in and have internalized these words that get thrown around all the time so loosely, but they are grenades. Patriarchy, toxic masculinity. Are there bad men out there? Yeah, of course. Always has been, always will be. Are there bad women out there? Yeah. But to the degree you believe that all men are this, or all men are there, first of all, there's a definition for that, and it's called sexism. But second of all, it's like, again, do you need to be right, or do you want to be met? Are you willing to do the work to resolve the resentments that you're carrying towards men? And I'll say the same thing for my men out there. To the degree you're carrying resentments against women, you will never be able to attract the reciprocal that emanates beyond that wounding that you've experienced. And so you'll continue to attract the same level of wounding as an unconscious way to try to heal that wounding And that's the way trauma works, right? That's the way PTSD works. That's the way all of these patterns work. You get stuck in a space and you attract more of it to try to heal it. And so you got to feel it to heal it. So said someone somewhere. But there's an art to that. There's an art to that. And there's beautiful work being done all over the country. There's amazing work being done in Austin. I just led a men's and women's thing with Amy and Ellie, the Desire on Fire girls this weekend. You lead Vulnerable AF. There's all kinds of stuff happening. Like, get into this. I wasn't born with this skill set.
Oh, yeah.
The whole reason this podcast is called what it is because I grew up in, the epicenter of second wave feminism and emasculated myself entirely as a means of trying to be what I thought women needed and wanted me to be as an act of love. And it was the pain of 3 decades of work of realizing the thing that I thought you wanted is the opposite of what you needed.
Totally.
And the pain of that, and then learning how to come back online and having all these relationships with all these incredible women who emasculated the fuck out of me because I let them, because I called it in, because I was there. And they didn't want that. They see this 6'5" dude and they're like, oh, he's the one that's going to be able to stand up to me. And then I didn't. Like how shitty that must have been for them. And, oof.
Yeah.
But again,
it's like, this is our path.
Yeah. And if you can feel into your pain will show you the pieces that are ready to heal, that are asking for the work, that are asking for the attention and the love or the workshop or the teacher or the mentor. And they're all out there. I have mentors and coaches that I work with, just like I have clients and mentees that work with me. I know you do too. It's like, we're all in the food chain together. We're all in it, and who cares who's better? This, like, what's the work for you? What's resonating with you? Follow that. It's all here. It's all here. It's time. It's time to end the battle. If we are men and women and other, right, enough to do that. Like, call yourself whatever you want. We're talking about archetypal energies here, and we're talking about bodies, but this is the work. So I love the work you do, Veronica. It's remarkable, and I am just really grateful to have had this conversation with you. I feel like it's the first of many, and just, so excited to see what you continue to bring. I know there will be future collaborations between us in this town. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Workshops. Check out for that. Where can people find your work, Veronica? What you got going on?
Thank you for having me. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. You can find I had do in-person workshops here in Austin. So Vulnerable AF today is more of a difficult conversation dojo, right? So I teach you how to have these kinds of conversations and how to deal with triggers inside of conversations, how to reveal the truth of your heart. So I'm having a workshop this Wednesday, November 15th here in Austin called Vulnerable AF. And it's the theme is transforming conflict into intimacy. So I do monthly workshops. Next year, my Vulnerable AF course is coming out in January. So,
oh, snap.
Yeah. I'm excited about that. I haven't launched this course since 2021.
You have a course.
So,
Veronica. Dope.
Yeah,
That's very inspiring because people been pushing me for something like that too. So I'm hearing you. I'm hearing the gauntlet drop. Great. Okay.
Yep. It's been a journey, but yeah. So yeah, that's my program. That's my workshop. You can find me on Instagram. I'm very active on there. I have a newsletter.
What's your handle?
At veronicakaulinis.com. So
spell that last name for my people out there.
VeronicA Kaulinis.
And we'll put all that up on the show notes and everything too for y'all. But wow, what a treat. If you guys didn't enjoy this episode, I don't know what to tell you. If you did, pass it to your people. And again, this work isn't about us. This is, I say this all the time and I'll say it again. This is a very human, universal technology that we're speaking to here. It doesn't belong to me or Veronica. She's got her IP. I've got mine, just like everybody does, her own way of teaching this work. But there are so many ways into it and so many ways this work works. And so get into it. it's so right. It's so real. It is the work that I believe will save the world. And it is the work that restores my faith in humanity every single day that I see it work, because it just does with complete strangers. It's so remarkable.
It's like, wow, like it's like if you can clear up all your resentments, like what kind of life would you have? And that's one of my path or purposes. It's like I want to help people clean up their fucking resentments so that they can actually have the relationships that they want, the life that they want, and live in freedom. That's the kind of life.
If you could clear all your resentments towards men or women, what life would be possible for you?
Yeah, it's like,
no, but seriously. And hey, like V and I are not done. Like there are still resentments there that I am like, fuck.
Oh no, it is bad. Don't work with anybody who says that they don't have any, that they're just good, that they're perfect, and they don't have any shit to clean up.
Yeah, and maybe don't work with people that have more shit than you.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
test the waters. But
Exactly.
We'll have to have you back on soon. So blessings to you. Thank you everyone for listening. Again, if this work served you, please share the podcast, send it to your friends. I'm sure there's particular medicine here that someone in your life needs to hear. So send it on, and just so grateful to you guys for listening to the show. We'll see you next time.